Steve, you're in your orange, so it's not Monday. We're on Tuesday this week, but it's for a great reason because we have a great guest and we also have a podcast to do, and it's called the Stuff Summer Says podcast
Steve.
with Steve. Um, okay, so we'll get to the guest here in a second, but we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Um, Stuff is out. This year's stuff is out since the last time we talked. Appreciate everybody that's bought some stuff already. Did want to let you know that there is a way that you can save on some stuff, both this year and last year's stuff. If you join our email list now, you'll get an email with a discount code. You can save 10%. So look at us
That's pretty
being,
nice of us,
yeah, I
if
think
I
we're
must
pretty
say so
great. Yeah.
myself.
So we're taking it out of Steve's cut, so it's totally fine.
There we go again.
No. But yeah, there was that. There was something. There was another piece of housekeeping that we'll probably get to at the end of the show. So it's not that important. Our guest this week was senior producer from the Big Ten Network, Rob Michel. Rob's a Penn State grad. Rob has spent a number of years working at the Big Ten Network, kind of behind the scenes, and what it takes to produce and has been producing some of your favorite shows on the network, some of the games, some of the highlight packages, etc. It's a great way to kind of understand the ins and outs of what happens to make a TV show, because we just see the TV show and think this is great, and nothing else happens. I feel like sometimes. So, um, listen to that. We then have another topic to debate after that, and then we have old guy, young guy. Not stressful. Not stressful. I'm just curious. So, all right, go ahead and listen to our interview with Rob, and we'll be back after this. Steve, we're finally going to get to peel back the curtain a little bit and see what goes on behind the scenes at our most watched network, or at least the network that's usually on by default in my house, I think is the best way to
Nice.
say that. Tonight, our guest is Rob Michel. He is a senior producer at BTN. Rob, how are you?
I'm great, guys.
Awesome.
Just got through shower time with the kids, so we're off and running. At least one of them. My
Okay.
wife's dealing with the other one. So
The other one might be just
um,
running around the house. Just
yeah. Well, Amelia, my 6-year-old, tends to she dictates a little bit more her schedule, so that might be the case.
okay. All right. Well, we'll give you a reprieve and give you an excuse to hang out with us. Rob, let's start with, what do you do at the Big Ten Network?
So I am a senior producer in studio production, and that's a fancy way to say I do linear television shows. Um, Anything from talk shows to highlight driven shows, analysis. We just got through, well, I shouldn't say we got through. I got through my road portion of the camp tour. We do a football camp tour every August. Our last couple stops are coming up here in the next couple days as we're taping this. And um, a producer, a line producer in what we do, pretty much kind of, you can equate to like maybe an offensive coordinator. The hosts and the analysts, I'm not their coach. The hosts and the analysts are really who's driving the show. And it's my job behind the scenes to work with our fantastic crew to get everything lined up. So you guys don't see if, hey, that highlight might have been a little late. We intended it for this spot or this spot. Dave Revson or Rick Pizzo or any of our hosts will just sit there and go through the next process. You guys don't see that. We go through and line up. We tell them in their ear, hey, okay, we're ready for this. Northwestern knocked off Notre Dame. That's exciting. We're going to come back with this in the next block, or things like that. So what I do from a day-to-day basis is just kind of line up the show, work with the hosts and the analysts, whether it's a talk show, interview guests, things like that. I'm a booking producer. I'm a field producer. Occasionally, I'm a feature producer. Once in a while, I've tried my hands at being a game producer. It's really all about content these days. So whether it's online or on TV, you kind of wear a little bit of many hats, but my day job is a studio line producer.
What made you say, I want to be the guy behind the camera, kind of controlling the buttons, so to speak, or pushing the right buttons?
So it really goes back to me to I'm a public school kid from Pittsburgh, and there was a scholars program in Pittsburgh um, that one day a week you went to a different school and you learned about different curriculum than you would have in your regular school. And in eighth grade, I took a television production class, and I was hooked. I, like a lot of people, didn't really understand how many people work behind the scenes, especially at that age. Um, and I approached high school and eventually college with this is what I want to do. And I have a passion for sports, and that worked out well. But I just thought it was really cool to be able to take media and bring it to your home, or these days now bring it to your phone or wherever, your iPad or wherever you meet you. But really, that kicked it off, and I'm really passionate about public school education and the opportunities when we have kids through here in Chicago to be able to talk to them about, hey, I was in your shoes, and this is something that you can do if you really want to pursue it.
When you so when you are producing, let's take a game week for example. You've got the afternoon show, and then you also have kind of some of the other shows. When you've got those going on, how much preparation, how much planning in advance are you doing, or how much is that is flying by the seat of your pants?
It's a little bit of both. So when you're involved in a game, I think your question was directly about a game. If you're involved with a game, um, you're thinking about storylines and things like that ahead of time. But really, like when we're doing a middle, let's say what we call the middle window, the 3:30 Eastern game, okay? Whether you're doing that halftime, at halftime, you want to make sure you're taking care of the audience that's doing that game. Let's say Penn State Bowling Green. You want to make sure the Penn State audience gets the analysis that they want from, hey, what happened in the first half? What did our analysts see that maybe we can enhance from the game production? As the second half's going on, we're working behind the scenes to not only bring you the best highlights and things like that from the Penn State game, but what happened with Ohio State, what happened now with Oregon, what happened with Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland, etc. And that's where I kind of made the example earlier. It's one that stands out in my career. Northwestern was playing Notre Dame and earlier in my career here, and you built the rundown a few days before, and you sat there and said, okay, these are the highlights that day. Okay, Northwestern's a little later in the show. Notre Dame is favored in that game. Northwestern knocked them off, and all of a sudden that's a bigger story. And the part of it that I really like on Saturday is you essentially dump the puzzle pieces out on the floor, and I get to put them back together. And I really give a lot of credit to our hosts and our analysts, because they trust me enough to sit there and say, okay, hey, I'm going to get you through this. Like, this is what I think is the next most important thing. What do you guys think? Okay, we're coming back with that. For example, they'll talk about that Penn State Bowling Green game. And while they're talking about it, I'm changing the video at the end of the block that we're going to tease the next element. Hey, something crazy happened. Let's move that video up. I'm talking to our edit team. They're back cranking out a highlight, or associate producers. Okay, hey, we've designed a rundown that we can move things around in, because whether it's Thursday or Friday or whatever day I start approaching that rundown, that isn't the rundown. I always say you want to do the best rundown for Saturday at 6 p.m. Like what you thought Thursday doesn't matter. So to be able to move all those things around, that's what we're doing in the back. And then, okay, hey, we've got a reporter at site. They're feeding back an interview. And okay, can we cue that up? Okay, hey, Dave, when we come back here, we're going to do the highlight. We're going to go right to Kylan Mills at site. After that, we're going to come out, we're going to do an analysis. And I know Howard Griffith wants to talk first about how Northwestern really turned it around in the second half. And from there, I roll the ball out and they go. And that's the special part, is that they take the analysis and really, like, they see a different game than I ever will. And I try to be a great fan and deliver the great picture to the audience. Try to be that person who I can see the pictures inside the control room, which one, if you had the remote, would you want?
Makes sense. I was going to ask, are you guys watching the games throughout Saturday? Like, and how does that kind of dictate when a big moment happens? Like, is there a kind of a moment that says, okay, we should probably slide this up on the rundown? Like, how does that work?
Totally. So you're watching the games, but it's really hard to watch every game when this conference was 14 teams. It's 18 now. When I joined the network, it was 12. So you're, especially in non-conference, is really challenging. But typically there's only a few really high profile matchups, and everybody else, you're just making sure that we really deliver for that audience the best highlight they can get anywhere. But okay, hey, Minnesota took care of business today. Okay, what's the biggest takeaway from the game? That might be a little bit shorter when you're dealing with 14 games versus when you're in, when you're in conference play and you're dealing with 9 or 7. So we're watching the games. Some of the analysis is results based. Some of it is actually what's seen on the field, and the analysts. Well, me and the graphics producers and the other people, the pilots and things like that, are running around in the back. The analysts are telling us, like, hey, here's what's important and what we should hit on.
You mentioned content, and it's all about that content. Where does deciding what's linear and what gets complemented on socials or other places, how does that fit into the puzzle? I mean, that almost sounds like another layer of like one of those 3D chessboards. Like, right, we got this going on, then we got that going on too.
Well, it depends on the day, right? So, if you're doing a camp tour show and I'm at site, like I just got back from Nebraska, Iowa, and Wisconsin. If there's something that really we have a great digital team here in Chicago, and also as parts on all these different campuses around, and they're monitoring what's going on linearly, and they're also producing their own content. We can share. We have in-house programs, Slack. A lot of people have that. We Slack, hey, you might have seen this. If you guys are interested, they'll clip it off and send it out. We had a reporter at site last year for an Iowa game. So what we do is we'll send a reporter if the game is on, say, CBS, and we don't have a Big Ten Network reporter because it's on a Big Ten Network game or a Fox game. We'll send a reporter individually, and our reporter, this was Kylie Mills, saw Caitlin Clark on the sideline talking to Dallas Clark and her daughter, showing a ring from their Final Four run. And she took a picture and said, hey, I've got this content. What should we do with it? And I alerted our digital team, and it's on Instagram, and people are consuming that. You don't, as you guys know, you don't have to wait for the linear show anymore.
Right.
If we have a different game on our air, that doesn't mean we can't put something else out. So it's really trying to work hand in hand and trying to be eyes, just like they're trying to be eyes for other departments. Hey, we've got this great thing that you might want. We try to be the same for them. And honestly, in our building, we really try to keep it so that whether it's the game production, social and digital, what we're doing, we're trying to all be a part of the same team and communicating. And these days you can communicate a lot quicker than know what other people have and what their content is.
You mentioned the growth of the conference just in your time, going from 12 to 14. Everybody's talking 18 this year.
Yeah.
Who do you hear from schools or people, and maybe not you particularly, but the Big Ten Network, about how much airtime somebody's getting? Like how vocal are people? Or are people watching that? Or do they, how is someone almost always paying attention to, hey, what about us? Or, hey, that kind of thing?
I think by nature, fans always do that, right? Okay. Fans are always sitting there. When I'm putting together a rundown or things like that, I'm trying to think of the big picture of what makes the most sense, but I'm also trying to think of, hey, these two stories are pretty similar. Maybe this team, we really haven't had a chance to put them a little bit more at the forefront. Let's do that this time. It's almost like that tiebreaker kind of thing to try to keep you're trying to keep everybody engaged and invested, but you're also like, we understand which games get the most eyeballs, but that doesn't mean that's our strategy is we want to have the best highlight for every Big Ten game. like ESPN has to serve a lot of different sports and a lot of so they don't have the same real estate in a sports center than we do in a final drive, for example. So we wanted that to, hey, we want to make sure that every team down the line feels like they were viewed, they got a little bit of analysis out of it, maybe they got some post-game reaction, and we take it from there. Do people probably weigh in? I think in anything in media these days, somebody's going to weigh in. But our goal is to try to push it that everybody feels like, hey, that really gave you a feel of what happened in the Big Ten today. And not just, we're talking a lot about football because it's August, but like whether it's volleyball, wrestling, like basketball, all the way down the line, like it's trying to manage that too, like this sport versus that sport. And that's the best thing also about the digital space is it's not nearly as finite as a 30-minute, a 60-minute show.
Gotcha. Thanks.
You mentioned the final drive, and as I mentioned, that's usually kind of my go-to what happened on the weekend recap. I need to get everything. But I still tune it. Well, I still tune in. I use YouTube TV, but I still tune in to it. I guess you also mentioned kind of the fact that you can go on Twitter, go on Facebook, go on Instagram and get those highlights. Why do we still enjoy a highlight show in 2024?
You know, I'm of an age where I grew up on Sports Center, NFL Primetime, the Baseball Tonight, and I think there's still people that just want to sit down on the couch sometimes and watch the show that way. And when we're putting together the final drive, a lot of my philosophy, whether it's a post game or specifically the final drive when I'm doing that one, and I've done it a lot in my time here, is it's on that NFL primetime model. I'm gonna give you a nice beefy highlight, your post game reaction, and we're really gonna break it down. And like it is a simple formula, but it's great when it's done right, where people I think get that opportunity that they're still looking at their phone and seeing what people are tweeting about the game, but when the games are over and you're trying to just process what happened, or maybe it's the beauty of the final drive is it runs all the way through Sunday. So maybe it's Sunday morning and you didn't stay up with the latest game and you're kind of catching up on that chunk like, oh, okay, I've got 20 minutes here while I'm having breakfast or something like that. That's the beauty of it, to sit and just process it and not have to be actively scrolling or something like that. So as you guys all know, media is consistently changing, but I think there's still a good chunk of people that value that. And then it in itself, that linear show is a content device that gets sliced up and chopped up. Like we have an element within the final drive called the final cut. And really it was me looking at what a couple other networks were doing about taking all the sound bites that didn't have a home somewhere else. Maybe it was that defensive lineman talking about that touchdown he had, or a player emotional about a game that didn't go the right way or whatever, and put that in quick cuts, and those get sliced up and put right out, and you might process it if you never turned on the channel. So I think there's a lot of value in that still.
Makes sense. I think one of the things I appreciate the most about the Big Ten Network is, and I think this has been maybe since day one, is comparatively to ESPN and even maybe Fox, and I know you guys are partially owned by Fox in a way, but there's a familiar, there's a comfort level aspect to how shows are presented. I feel like Dave Revson is a friend of mine because I sit. Is it like that behind the scenes as well? Like what's the atmosphere behind the scenes like at the Big Ten
Well,
Network?
you should see what it's like when we're on our van. It used to be a bus, but now van going from town to town, doing our football tour. And this year, especially because we're folding in some talent that had covered the Pac-12 for years and building new relationships and things like that. It's funny. You get those interactions behind the scenes. It's not always just straight work and things like that. And obviously when you work with somebody like Dave, it's over more than a decade. you get to know him, you get to know his family and things like that. And it's awesome to hear when somebody says, "Hey, I feel like I know Dave," or one of our analysts or things like that, because it means that first they're doing the best part to connect, but we're trying to give them the space to connect, right? Like I still have to get the commercial breaks in. I still have to, the show's still going to end within an hour, but I want to try to make sure that when we have those moments, we let them breathe. And as you produce longer in this, you get to get the feeling of sitting back and kind of understanding like, okay, this conversation here is the most important thing going on. I can I can table the other problems to another block or something like that. Let's give this the space it deserves because this is special.
Did you say, I just want to make sure, did you say you went from a bus to a van?
Okay,
So, I
so
mean, because the league got bigger, the transportation's getting
the
smaller?
transportation, it's well, or a plane or whatever, because now it's not.
Well, that's true.
It's and when I say van, it kind of steers it the wrong way. So football tour used to be on a bus. I'm sure
Yeah.
some of the people really remember those days where the painted bus, we had them sign in the bus. It was great. Then we went to we were a little more nimble. We had the van. It's a Sprinter van. It's really nice inside. Sprinter's probably the wrong term. I don't know if it's a Mercedes van or what it is, but it's got the nice cushy seats.
Okay.
But whether it's Ashley Adamson, who's now joined our team, or Dave Revson, and then Jerry DiNardo, Howard Griffith, they're all in spots there. And then a producer like myself, an associate producer, Kyle Coughlin, who does a lot of our relations with the schools. We're all, there's 6 seats, and we're looking at each other. When you guys talk about relationships, we're sitting at each other for hours on end, whether it's going from Lincoln to Iowa City or whatever. And some of the time spent talking about what the next show is going to be. Some of the time spent talking about what's going on in football or a big story happens, and we're doing that. Some of it spent where are we stopping for lunch, and hey, we got to take a break for a second. So it's a little bit of all that. Again, like a lot of this job is not just football, but you get the football, the big football part of it in August, the time we're doing right now.
I appreciate that. I'm going to roll 2 questions into one, and you can answer them however you want. You talked about
2-part question. Okay.
I'm rolling in 2, and then I'm stopping, and then Darian's. Okay. You talked about looking at what other networks do a little bit and ideas, and I'm sure they do too. So I'm curious, who do you compete with? And then what is a good day? Like, when do you know you've had a good day?
All right. So the 2-part question, I can sit there and take the best part whenever, and then pretend I didn't hear the other part.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm a sucker for question structure. All right. Who do we compete with? We compete with for your attention with everything, but then we also compete with ourselves to be our best self. And that answer might sound like a cop-out, but I really feel that way. Like we want to make sure that we're telling the best stories, we're breaking things down the best way. We're giving you, like, if you turn us on, we've got a good, you're going to get a good feel for what happened today. You're going to be entertained. But also it's an understanding that like we have to be our best selves. Like we're not sitting there necessarily looking at the way another network does it. And yeah, there's a little bit of, hey, Football Night in America did this. This makes sense. How does it work for us? And I don't know, maybe vice versa, maybe not. But it's really about trying to be our best self. And that's at the core of it. What's a great day? I think when you walk out of there's so much energy in the building, whether it's a basketball doubleheader or a football Saturday, or when we've covered a team winning a national championship, which we've been lucky enough to do a couple times. When you get out of there and you go, man, if you were a fan of that team, or if you just wanted to know what happened, you heard from every person you wanted to. It was great when the confetti was coming down all over the set. When Caitlin Clark hit that shot and then she was on our set. All that, that's the best day. And the best thing about this business is you get to have a number of best days. And the challenge that we hold ourselves to is some days things went great, but you sit there and you're driving home and you're going, I really wish this graphic was different, or, everything was great, but this one little part. And I think by nature in a lot of things, you sit there and kind of second guess yourself. I would think that there's things that fans at home are critical of us that we're like, okay, well, we understand we think we did the best with the situation that we had here. And then there's other stuff that I think people at home would be like, hey, I really thought that was great. And we're sitting there like, man, I really, if we would have ended this segment a little bit earlier, I could have got this other interview in and it would have been one more voice. Oh man, did you see that? Okay. Well, let's make sure that digital's aware so they can get it out online so other people can see it. But man, I really wish I would have got that on the show. So it's really challenging yourself in that regard.
Cool. Thank you.
Rob,
Yeah.
last serious question for me, and then we've got a couple. You're a Penn Stater, so you got to go through the gauntlet, as we like to say.
Okay.
You mentioned conference expanding this year. What will be the biggest change or noticeable change for fans when they tune into the Big Ten Network and this new era?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for us is we're not adding 4 teams, we're adding 4 programs. So it's not like 4 football teams. It's not 4 basketball teams, women's basketball teams, volleyball teams. It is everything that has to do with Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC. And we want to treat them the same way we're treating every program that's come into this league and every program that's been in this league forever. So the biggest change there is, I mean, there's some, like, we're gonna have a game with Dylan Gabriel in it. That's pretty awesome. I got a chance to meet him briefly when we did an interview out in Oregon. I got to go out to Oregon and Washington, and I was really grateful for that. Like, we're going to be able to bring a Big Ten audience a game from Husky Stadium or the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is so special for this league. Now we're going to get the Rose Bowl so much more, and I think like the fans are really going to enjoy that. If you're an Indiana fan and get a chance to go out to the Rose Bowl, like watch your team there, or if you're an Indiana fan in California, this league has so many fans. That's one of the best things about this. I've been really lucky, whether it's working in Philadelphia, working in Pittsburgh, working at ESPN here. Like, I've been able to work with teams and programs where people care. And man, people are so passionate about it. And I think people are really going to be excited about. There's been a lot of talk about teams moving and stuff like that. Now, like, we're in the mode where the games are going to happen. And to see those venues, to see Husky Stadium, to see Pauley Pavilion, like, it's going to be pretty cool.
Cool. All right. 3 questions for you. Relatively easy,
Okay.
Slightly stressful. Depends on how stressful you take them. First question, go-to creamery ice cream flavor.
I really need to branch out, but I'm a Peachy Paterno guy. I love peach ice cream.
Okay.
I love peach flavored things. It was, okay. I literally couldn't list 3 other flavors on the menu.
That's fine. That's okay. Because
that's great.
At some point you should try different things.
Yeah, I mean, you should, but I've had other peach ice creams, and there's
passion is a good thing.
It's there's not many out there like that. All right, you are the czar of Penn State sports for a day. What changes are you making?
All right, so I kind of look back at a couple other interviews, and I know this part's been said, so I'll give you a different answer. But men's basketball, women's basketball. Well, men's basketball, I love the game of Palestra. I think it's awesome for the program. Having worked in Philly, I know what college basketball and that building means. I would love to see more games in Rec Hall. Like the venue's great. For our men's and women's team, the atmosphere is just a great opportunity. I understand the value of the BJC. Like, just a couple more games here and there, and specifically when you put a good opponent in Rec Hall, like, and you have that energy, a close game, like, it's really fun. But I know other people have said that. So the one I'm going to go to, and it may happen already with the renovations, I'd love to see a Winter Classic in Beaver Stadium.
Yeah.
been able to be at a few, worked a few, uh, covering the Flyers, cover the Penguins over the course of my career. Those fan bases, just remembered what it was like as an undergrad when Penn State would play on Saturday and everybody loves everybody, and then 1 o'clock on Sunday it's Penn's Flyers and there's a little animosity in town. That'd be really cool.
Okay. All right. Those are the two answers I wholeheartedly agree with. All right. Last one. You're back in town for one night and one night only. What bar are you walking into?
So this answer's probably changed over time, right?
It can be an old bar that doesn't exist. We've had people
Yeah,
say
well,
that.
I would tell you now I'm walking into local whiskey.
Okay. Okay.
My roommate from college, another Pittsburgh kid like me, still lives in State College, and when I get back into town, that's normally where we go. But we're probably making our way down to the first before the end of the night. Hear some table wars or something like that. That's the way to go. Back in the day, there's some great music that's been heard in the saloon over the course of time. That's for sure.
All right. I like all this. I like all this. All right, Rob. Big Ten Network. Where can people find you? Find the Big Ten Network besides on their television.
I'm on Twitter at Rob Michel, Michel, and you obviously can see the Big Ten Network. Our goal is for you don't know which show I'm doing, which is kind of fun. But you can see the network. And week 2, our tailgate show is coming to State College for the Bowling Green game. So I'm sure people will get out where the setup will be. It's typically around the BJC. So get out there, watch the final drive, watch us on Saturdays, and especially this year, it's going to be so much fun.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jerry.
Good. 3, 2, 1. Steve, I think, again, like I said there in the podcast, or in the interview, I think what I love the most about Big Ten Network is there's a spirit to it that feels friendly, and maybe Rob's personality helps with that. But I think you can kind of see that come through in that conversation of why that exists. And I think that's one of the things, like I said, that sets the Big Ten Network apart. When I turn on the Big Ten Network, I very rarely get, for lack of a better term, pissed off because people aren't saying stupid things, because people are saying smart things when they're on that network. And I think that's the thing that stands out to me kind of between the Big Ten Network and maybe the ACC network, and the former Pac-12 network, I guess, of what makes the Big Ten Network probably the best of those. And I think probably the most underrated sports channel nationally, on a national scale, because of some of the things in the access that they give you. Yeah, I thought that was a great conversation with Rob.
Yeah, the Big Ten Network specifically was the first of these, right? Like the first of the conference networks. They figured it out early that they're there for the conference and their fans. Rob talked about their real estate and what they have to worry about, right? Like, here's what we're focused on, and I think they do a very good job of that. And I think to Rob, his points about talking about the kind of things they do and who they're serving, there's a passion there, and you want that from the people on the backside, right? It's easy that we talk about the passion of the athletes and the coaches and whatever else. You want that from the people who are producing stuff, and they do a really good job across the board. I mean, they might not have some bells and whistles that in game production, but I think in terms of studio stuff, they have thoughtful people who care about what they're doing. And they're rolling in, as he said, 4 more programs this year. So they're going to be bringing in some more talent. So I think one thing fans will see is some different faces and hear some different voices, which I think will be interesting to see how that, to see how you get served that way this year.
I am interested to see, and I don't know if there's going to be a way for us as an East Coaster to kind of understand it. But I am interested to see the way that those schools integrate in, because I really hadn't thought about it until we had this conversation tonight with things like the Big Ten Network, because it's not like you're adding podunk schools here in terms of the powerhouse, at least particularly at football season, that these schools are going to provide basketball season too, and those are really the bread and butter of those two. But even some of the smaller sports, particularly like women's volleyball in the Big Ten, is now already stacked, and you just added a whole nother layer onto it that I'm interested by, and I'm interested to see how the Big Ten Network handles that. Um, yeah,
I think it's going to be fun for them. I mean, I think that
yeah,
you're just getting so much more quality in the mix. That it'll be fun. I think that it's going to translate. I think you may see some more. I don't know, maybe not more in different approaches. I mean, they do a good job with their studio shows, but just they can try some different things. They got some different schools to try. They got some different personalities coming in. Hey, we did this at the Pac-12 network. Want to give it a shot? Or yeah, I think they're very creative and do a good job, and I think they can only get better with more content, more schools, more programs to work with.
I'm fascinated. And this, we might not see this in like this season, this year, this school year, I guess. But I'm fascinated maybe 5 years from now, like where the Big Ten Network is in terms of its footprint in the national sports media conversation. Because I think it could have a bigger say now that the conference is coast to coast, quite literally. And then also like the schools that are added are when you think of the colleges in America, the USC, Michigan, Ohio State, even like some of those schools are the first schools that you name off of that list, and I think there's something to that, and how they foster that and grow that is going to be interesting. So yeah, thanks to Rob for joining us. Okay, all right, the news of the day. Look, you even got the right colors on for this conversation
Oh,
today.
that's true. Yeah, that's
This
true.
is big news of the day is from, well, it's been posted all over the place, but I'm just going to read the Matt Fortuna tweet because that's who I saw it from, which was Oklahoma State players will wear QR codes on the back of their helmets that link to a general team fund. Mike Gundy said this is a revolutionary step forward to keep Oklahoma State football ahead of the game. It gives a chance for everyday fans across the world to have a real impact when it comes to supporting the NIL efforts for Cowboy football. I'm thrilled about this opportunity for our players. Okay, lots to discuss, lots to take away there. First thing is, how practical is this? Like, how practical is it for it's listen, not to sound like you or people of your age group. It is very hard to scan a QR code. I just tried to do it the other night at dinner and it didn't work, and I got annoyed, and then it was just a whole process. So, how practical is it to scan a QR code on the back of a football helmet, which is on an athlete that's moving and bobbing and getting tackled and covered, whether it's on TV or on in person? I don't think it's practical. I think it's more of a shtick thing than anything else.
Okay, so two pieces to that.
Okay.
I think one is they will now put their football players in a position, whether it's at events, whether it's at whatever else, to be holding their helmet. Like if you hold your helmet upside down by the face mask beside you or whatever else, the QR code might be visible. I know that's at hip level, right? So maybe that's not good. And you get from the sideline. So they'll do that. No, it's not practical. No, it's not practical.
Okay.
B, they'll do that. C, it's about the story that happened today.
Okay,
right?
that's what I thought.
It's about them being creative. It's about them creating an opportunity. It's about them being the first in this space. And not that it's a big space. I'd be interested to see what kind of money they get, and hopefully somebody will follow up in 6 months to see if they got something out of it or how much they got out of it. But it's about the news story. It's today's college football story.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Though, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, I think this is.
I don't think they're raising millions this way, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how crazy fan bases are or not in terms of that kind of stuff. Because once it shows up in a clear photo somewhere, it's the same QR code on every helmet, right? Then they can share it on socials, right? And people don't have to click it on the helmet while it's moving. They've got it. There it is. Boom. Scan the QR code from your whatever account.
I guess. I remember, I think UCF did something similar with their jerseys. Now, I can't remember if it was names, the nameplate, or the actual jersey numbers, and this was for their spring game a few years back. But I don't know. I think it's more about what happened today. And that was kind of, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to make sure. So that,
yeah, like I think it's just there for that to say they did it.
Yeah.
Right. But there's got to be a still image with every story. Like, here's what they provided. So it's there. So that site has to have gotten thousands of visitors today.
Well, the Matt
in terms
Fortuna
of the
tweet.
QR code.
Let's see. The Matt Fortuna tweet got it reached 1 million people today on Twitter.
Right. So some of those followed the QR code just for kicks to see what it was, right? To see if it's prefabricated or preloaded with a $25 minimum, 50, 100 more, right? Because that's what they have to do. If they're any smart, like the QR code leads you to a site that already has one button already pushed, and all you got to do is, start confirming.
I feel like I should have tried this before we had this conversation, but it's okay. No, I think that's
okay. Listeners can do it. That'll be the interactive homework.
There you go. That's the interactive homework portion of the show. Okay. Next.
So
question.
The other part of this that we talked about a little bit, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. Set it up.
If this were to happen on a blue and white striped football helmet, how would the people that are the fans of that fan base react?
I think this is like the one thing that like I think this is like the one thing people would have the biggest hissy fit about, and I would have a hissy fit about it because I think there are certain helmets in college football that are, for lack of a better term, sacred, right? Like I think the Penn State helmet is. I think Michigan's helmet is, even though they stole it from Princeton or wherever. Hell, I think the Princeton helmet is. I think Ohio State. I think maybe the USC one. I don't know about the Bama
Texas?
one. Texas is a big one. Florida, etc. Like there are certain helmets, and Oklahoma State has like 12 different helmets. They got 12. Well,
I was gonna say Oklahoma State.
Bunch of different shells and different decals. They go through them. They change them every game. It's not like they're one of those schools.
Right. But that's another part for them. You're not like you're touching sacred territory by doing what they did. But keep going.
But I think like this is the one that like if this happened at Penn State, I think people would be very upset. And I think like I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it would be a dumb move. And like if James Franklin is looking for a reason for more people to be mad at him, this would be an easy way out.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, there's going to be something. My expectation would be there'd be something on the field within the next 2 seasons. Maybe not this season, God forbid. But again, if they don't do it this season, they're just leaving money on the table, or they couldn't find somebody who wanted to afford whatever the number is they want. Right. So there's two, the names and the jerseys have already happened and they're gone. Right. So if something in the future would happen. And there's patches from bowl games on the jersey. So the jersey uniform, it feels like that's been touched a couple different times that maybe people wouldn't go through the roof if something showed up there.
Can we stop there for a question? Because I have a question. I have a question on the jersey patch thing. I wasn't alive for that or really like how big of a deal was that when they allowed them on? Because that was like even like the Nike swoosh was like a big deal, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think they were on a scale of 1 to 10, and somebody can chime in and correct me and that's older than me. I think they were both about a 5.
Okay.
Like I think people were like, "Hey, why are you messing with our stuff?" Like we know Nike provides uniforms. Why is the swoosh got to be there? Kind of thing. And then the bowl games, they put them off for a couple of years with the bowl sponsor patches of like, "No, we don't have that." And then they eventually, I'm sure one bowl said, "Well, then the conference might have said you're not getting your split,
right? If
you don't put it on." So, and I think people grumbled, but everybody else was doing it, and we were probably the only ones. So I think maybe they were both 5s. We're like, this is tradition, this is history. The helmet is. Yeah,
you agree that the helmet's
they've had
sacred,
stuff there. I mean, but didn't they do on the back of the helmets, or was it on the uniforms the unity thing that everybody was? We were going to do this 3 years ago.
They did
and then they pulled it off because it didn't matter. They don't have the flag, right? Every once in a while, people get an uproar about that.
I can't remember if they have the flag
some
or
random
not.
person.
No, they do because, but they have the nationality of the player because Hunter Norzad had the Iranian flag, and a couple of the Canadian players have had like Jesse Luketa had the Canadian flag on theirs. But that feels relatively new. But I think that's. And the Thon decal has been on there as well, but again, that's something all Penn Staters support. Not all Penn Staters support NIL, and I think that's like you know what I mean.
That's the problem,
right? Like, well, but like, I think I think this is the quickest way to. This would be the quickest way to piss people off in state college if you had
and beyond.
Because I think collectively we could all live with. I think we could all live with alterations to the jersey because there's been the piping around the jersey. There's been, I don't know if there's really ever been a stripe on the jersey per se, but there's at least been the piping around the neck and shoulders. Um,
No, and they do the throwbacks, traditions,
right,
the
they started
throwbacks of
doing
greatness, or
those.
traditions of greatness, and there's a little bit of everything there.
Right,
No, I think the helmet would be, I think, yes, because of its pristine property and because it's NIL, I think people would be, I don't know, I guess but and then the best part is you're literally putting the NIL effort on the backs and shoulders of the student athletes when you do that too. Like, here it is. We're really gonna
it's a little
make sure that
it's a
we're
little
pimping them
nuanced,
out.
yeah.
So yeah.
Would you? Okay, let's take it a step further. The NHL teams, NBA teams, baseball teams, Pirates just got in trouble for putting the Sheets logo on there and taking pictures of with the players or whatever. Would you be upset if they put a Sheets or a Hershey logo on the jerseys?
No, I'd roll my eyes, right, and just be like, okay, here's another step. Here's another step that they're selling stuff that they've, to whatever. Like, I don't know that I'd be upset. I don't know that any of that stuff would upset me. It would just be like, okay, we're sliding further down this road toward
As
the
as
33rd NFL team.
Okay, that's fair. I agree with that. I eventually happen one day, but I kind of think that like I don't know. I would have a problem with a logo patch that isn't a bowl game patch on the jersey. Maybe I'm too traditionalist, but I don't even like the little chipmunk logo kind of on the like
Yeah,
on the collar or
it's on the
whatever.
collar. What if what if a college football team, and maybe one already does, figures out, and I don't know what's allowed. So this is, and I grumble when people get on shows and don't prep, but I didn't know we were going here. What if a team figures out like a warm up shirt of something for college football? Like, would there
Mm.
be like,
Hmm.
that's not my uniform, but in pregame we're out there in the Wawa overcoat over the Wawa pennies, for lack of a better term, but they wouldn't be pennies. They'd be like pregame jerseys. Like,
Hmm.
what if college football moved to like a pregame jersey thing? And those things aren't the official uniforms, but they are the things that have the ads on them. And then they change and come out for the game in their uniform. Like,
They're
I mean, it feels like that would be a way to skirt any kind of rule
yeah,
sort of thing and
that's
still be able
because
to
you
do,
is I think the role is you have to be uniform. You can't have guys mismatching. But I don't have a
I don't
problem
know.
with that. I don't have
Maybe that
I
can
don't
be
have a problem with
argued.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I think about for them,
It's a
like,
good
you
idea.
don't want to mess with the stuff. How are the ways that you tiptoe the line, still give people some excitement? I mean, it's like all the third and fourth and fifth jerseys that teams have. I never understand how those make money for them. Like, I just can't believe that many people buy them to make a
I don't think
difference.
they do. I think it's a
But
recruiting thing. I think
yeah.
it's more of that.
But even in the pros, like, here's this third jersey, like, it says, the Brewers last week, whatever they had, Brew Crew, whatever it was for one of their games. Like,
Right.
really, there's 2 or 3 games a year in those? Do you sell that many replicas? Do you do that much difference
Yeah.
in whatever to make a difference?
Well, it's a
But
way to make more money.
people don't go and get into a tree about that. Going back to where we started, I do think messing with the helmet would put a
Yeah.
few people in trees.
Yeah. I mean, because there were some people that didn't even like when they put 42 on the helmet for Mahdi. Like there were people that were like, "Why no?" Like,
Right.
which I am the proponent for bringing the numbers back on the helmet. I think that is the best thing for fans. Honestly, is
Maybe they could bring them back with little watermarks, logos of a company inside the numbers.
okay. All right. You keep telling ourselves that, Steve.
Just trying to help out those NIL
Okay.
folks.
Yeah. Okay. Look at you. There's Steve,
There's Steve
the
helping the
pro
NIL folks out.
NIL guy.
Sorry, that's probably not true.
All right. This week's old guy on guy, brought to you by the Summers household. Well, one person in the Summers household that's not me. Anna has been on a reading kick this year. I don't know how many books she's read. It's got to be like close to 100 something now. She's been flying through books. Is Steve a book reader? Does Steve read books?
Yeah, I'm always reading something.
Okay.
What did I finished a couple books at the beach a few weeks ago. I'm kind of between books now. I read Chris Raymond's book, right?
Right. That
Um,
most recent book I've read is that one.
yeah, no, I'll go through. The challenge is Steve's not a very good rememberer of stuff he's read, right? Like, so I have like authors I like, and I'll be like, oh, that looks like an interesting book, right? And if I've given it away or don't have it anymore, I'll be like, I'll get it, and it'll be like 6 pages or a couple, a chapter, and I'm like, damn, this sounds familiar. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not really sure. So there's probably a couple, David Baldacci books that I've read more than once and whatever else. But yeah, I typically have something going
Okay.
all the time. Oh, and then always a magazine of some sort that's in the mix as well. There's probably 2 or 3 things by my chair when I go upstairs that I'm working my way through at different times.
I was just saying, now that I think about it, there are a
So you
few
don't
books.
read? Is that what
I
you're
don't
saying?
I don't read books. Like I'm like, it's very rare that I read a book. I probably read a book a year. I read Chris's book, obviously, because he was going to be on the podcast, but it's also, and again, not
So
saying
what do
this.
you read? Just stuff online? Just
I
sports
read stuff
or
online. I'll read long form journalism
okay,
stuff.
okay.
So like and maybe I don't know if it's. Do you read a lot of fiction? Or
Yeah, it's either fiction. I was in biographies kick for a while, but it's probably more
okay.
fiction for that stuff, and then nonfiction, sports, and like news magazines and long form storytelling kind of stuff to complement the books that are
Okay.
fiction.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like I just never been a big fiction guy. Um, Most of the books I've probably read, I would say, are nonfiction. But I did, and have I said this last year, but I'm going to do it this year, just mainly because I did read recently and was thinking about something else to read again, because good habit to build or whatever. I am going to read. I think I am going to read Friday Night Lights this year,
Yeah, okay.
because I have not read that. But I feel like that's such a essential football book to read and know. So okay, I was just curious. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's
good
good.
stuff.
That's good. All right. Housekeeping homework stuff. Next week is a big week for us because there's a football game. Depth chart on Monday. Hold on, let me pull up the list. Depth chart on Monday. Podcast likely Tuesday. A season preview Wednesday. A game preview on Thursday. Something maybe probably from Steve next week. Not to put pressure on him. Probably send it a newsletter next week. And then a football game on Saturday. And we'll kind of get into the grind, get into the groove. Excited about that. Yeah, depth charts and everything will be out on Monday because that's when James Franklin's presser is. Although we won't probably have the official depth chart, I'll kind of have to piece it together, and then we'll have to piece it together again after the game. There's that. Up today on the blog is the flashcards to go through the roster because and I was as I was going through, I'm like, there's a little, not a ton of number changes, but there's enough that I'm like, I forgot that was this guy's number. So spend some time to go through those because then you don't want to look like an idiot when you start calling, whoever. So that's kind of all the housekeeping stuff. Like I said, there is a way to get 10% off your next stuff order. Most items. Just saying. That's the sign up of the email. Miss anything else in housekeeping, homework?
No, lots of good content
Okay.
coming. Lots of good content there. It's football season. We're pretty good at churning out stuff that you're not finding someplace else. So
Yeah.
check it out.
We're trying to do different stuff. All right. 5 stars, thumbs up. Thanks to Rob for joining us. Great conversation. Really appreciated that. We did that. We talked about all the other stuff on the blog. The blog is called stuffsummersays.com. On that blog, there's a section called with
Steve.
Let's see. We have an email. We both have emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
perfect. Twitter handles. Mine's at stuffsummersays. Steve's is
At Steve Sampson.
see ya. Bye-bye.